I've always liked camping alone. No crowds, no noise, just the forest and the quiet that comes with it. That's why I chose a remote campground miles away from the nearest town. The ranger station was closed for the season and only a few sites were open. I didn't see another car when I arrived. The forest felt different the moment I stepped out of my truck. Not peaceful, alert. The trees stood close together, their branches blocking most of the sunlight. The air smelled damp and heavy like rain that never quite fell. I told myself it was just nerves. First nights always felt strange. My campsite sat near a tree line with a narrow trail disappearing into the woods behind it. There were no nearby sights, no voices, no signs of recent campers. Just my tent, the fire pit, and the soft wind moving through the leaves. As night settled in, the forest grew unnaturally quiet. No insects, no owls. Even the wind seemed to fade. The silence pressed in, making every small sound feel too loud. When I zipped up my tent, the noise echoed longer than it should have. Around midnight, I heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate. They didn't crunch leaves or snap twigs like normal footsteps. They sounded careful, like whoever was moving knew exactly where to place their feet. I held my breath, listening. The steps circled my campsite once, then stopped. I waited. Nothing. Eventually, I convinced myself it was an animal and tried to sleep. That's when I heard my name, not shouted, whispered, soft, close, and unmistakably human. My blood ran cold. No one knew I was out here. I hadn't told anyone the exact location. I stayed frozen, staring at the thin tent wall separating me from the darkness outside. A shadow passed slowly across the fabric. Then a hand pressed against the tent. Not clawed, not furry, human, and whoever it belonged to wasn't in a hurry. They were patient. I didn't move for what felt like hours. The hand stayed against the tent just long enough for me to register every detail, the shape of the fingers, the slight tremor, the way the fabric stretched inward. Then it slowly pulled away. The footsteps retreated, fading into the forest until the silence returned, heavier than before. I didn't sleep. When dawn finally broke, I stepped out of the tent, exhausted and shaking. The campsite looked untouched at first glance, but that feeling didn't last. Around the perimeter of the clearing, I saw footprints pressed into the damp soil. Bare feet, too large to be a child's, too narrow to be an animal's. They circled my tent, not once, multiple times. I packed up immediately, telling myself I'd leave after a quick breakfast. But something stopped me. A strange curiosity, or maybe denial. I walked toward the trail behind my campsite, the one that vanished into the trees. A few feet in, I noticed something hanging from a branch. My food bag. The one I'd hung the night before, high and secure, was now dangling at eye level, carefully untied. Nothing was taken. It had been moved. Deliberately. The forest felt wrong again. The silence returned, thick and unnatural. I became aware of movement above me, subtle. Branches swaying without wind. I heard breathing. Not close, high up. From the trees. I spun around, heart racing, trying to spot whoever was watching me. That's when I saw it. A figure perched on a branch, far above the trail, perfectly still. It was human-shaped, but something about the way it crouched was wrong. Too balanced, too comfortable. We stared at each other, then it smiled. I ran back to my campsite, adrenaline burning through me. My truck was still there, but when I tried to start it, the engine clicked uselessly. Dead battery. I hadn't left the lights on. I was sure of it. That's when I heard movement again. Multiple footsteps, not circling this time, closing in. From the woods, a voice whispered, calm and familiar. Don't leave yet." Panic took over as the footsteps grew louder, no longer bothering to hide. They moved with purpose now, crunching leaves, snapping branches, surrounding the clearing from every direction. I backed toward my truck, keys clenched in my hand, heart hammering as I tried the ignition again. Nothing. Just the same hollow click. From the edge of the trees, a figure stepped forward, then another, then another. They stayed just beyond the reach of the firelight, their faces half hidden by shadow. All of them barefoot. All of them watching me with the same calm, unsettling stillness. None of them looked surprised to see me panicking. It felt like I was the only one who didn't understand what was happening. One of them spoke. "You missed the signs." His voice was low, steady, almost disappointed. He gestured toward the woods behind my campsite. The trail, the silence, the way the forest went quiet when you arrived. I demanded to know what they wanted, my voice shaking. The man tilted his head, studying me like I was something unfamiliar. "You stayed past nightfall," he said. "That's how it starts." Another stepped closer, just enough for the firelight to reach his face. His eyes reflected the flames in a way that didn't look right. Too bright, too focused. "There are rules," he continued. "Most people don't hear them. Animals do. We do." I realized then that none of them carried bags, tools, or weapons. They didn't look like campers. They looked like they belonged here, like the forest had shaped them. Behind me, something rustled near my tent. I turned just in time to see one of them crouching beside it, running his fingers along the fabric where his hand had pressed the night before. "You sleep loudly," he said without looking up. The woods noticed. Fear twisted into something colder, understanding. This wasn't a random encounter. I hadn't been targeted by chance. I had broken an unspoken boundary, stayed where I wasn't meant to stay, and now the forest was correcting the mistake. The first man smiled faintly. "You can leave," he said. Hope surged, brief and dangerous, but not the way you came. The trail behind me seemed darker now, narrower, like it was closing in on itself. I understood the warning without it being said. If I went into those woods again, I wouldn't come back. And judging by the way they watched me, I wasn't the first camper to learn that lesson too late. I don't know why they let me leave. That's the thought that still keeps me awake at night. After the man finished speaking, the group stepped back in unison, retreating just far enough to open a narrow path between the trees. It wasn't the trail I'd arrived on. This one was thinner, darker, barely visible.